Hi, you guys. Today I will be teaching the key concepts from Atomic Habits by James Clear. The main idea of this book is that small changes, when repeated consistently over time, can create major results. Clear argues that we often underestimate the power of tiny improvements because we focus too much on immediate results. So, these are the concepts we are going to cover today. We're going to cover the power of 1%, systems beat goals, the four laws of behavior change, identity based habits, and the plateau of latent potential. I also want to go over the word atomic. Atomic means that something very extremely small, right? But something super powerful. And just like an atom is small building blocks of everything around us, small habits are the small building blocks of our lives. Okay, let's move on to the power of 1%. The power of 1% is one of the very major key ideas in this book. James Clear explains that small improvements may seem insignificant in the moment, but just like compound interest, they mean a lot over time. And a good example of this is going to be like in school. One bad study session probably isn't going to hurt your grade, but consistently avoiding studying can eventually create a pattern where you fall behind. On the other hand, though, for example, if you start studying every 20 minutes a day, you can create stronger understanding over time. The important takeaway from the power of 1% is that it doesn't happen overnight. None of this improvement is going to happen overnight. And that small actions repeated consistently are what's going to make your long-term change into reality. Now on to systems that beat goals. One of the biggest arguments about this book is that systems are way more important than your goals. Something that really stood out to me in the book as well was people can have the same exact goals that we want to achieve, but someone might achieve those goals better because their systems in place are way more successful than the other person's systems. And the goals are the outcome that we want to achieve, right? But systems are the daily processes that help us get us there. For example, a student's goal might be to get an A in the class, but the goal itself doesn't tell them what actions they need to take to get there. A system, though, would be like creating a schedule, attending class, and preparing before exams. James Clear really explains that winners and losers have the same goal. Many people want good grades, better health, or a successful career, but the difference is in the systems that we create. A goal focuses on the finish line, but a system focuses on the actions that are taken every day. Now, on to slide 4, the four laws of behavior change. In the book, James Clear introduces the four laws that explain how habits are formed and how we can change them. The first law is make it obvious. This means designing reminders and cues for your habits. Like, for example, I always put my textbook on my desk just so, when I see it, it reminds me that I need to study. The second law is make it attractive. We are way more likely to do habits that we enjoy. Strategy is habit stacking, where you connect a new habit with something you already do. Like, for example, just making coffee in the morning, you can spend 5 minutes reviewing your notes. The third law is to make it easy. The easier your habit is, the way more likely you're going to do it. Starting with small actions lowers the barriers too. Studying for 10 minutes is a lot easier than studying for 3 hours. And number 4, make it satisfying. Your brain needs reward and reinforcement. Tracking progress or even just celebrating your little wins can help make those habits stick even more. And this is the practical framework for building and breaking habits. Now, on to identity. By making our identity part of our habits, it helps so much with making them stick. James Clear explains that there are three levels of change: outcome, processes, and identity. Most people want to start with the outcome, obviously. They think, I want better grades, I want to be healthy, but the stronger habits come from changing how you see yourself. You want to start with, I am the type of person who does this, instead of, I want to run, say, I am a runner. This shift matters because your identity influences your actions. When a behavior becomes connected to who you believe you are, it becomes so much easier to maintain. Like running, it is so much easier to continue exercising when running is part of your identity. It's not just something that you're temporarily forcing yourself to do. My takeaway from this is that focus on what you want to become and what you want to achieve more than what you want the outcome to be. Instead of asking, like, what is the goal? Ask, what type of person do I want to be? Now, on to the plateau of latent potential. The plateau of latent potential basically explains that, like, why people quit before seeing results. James Clear makes it very clear that habit growth to an ice cube in a cold room. If the temperature slowly increases, nothing seems to happen at first. But when the temperature reaches the melting point, the ice begins to change quickly. The same thing with our habits. We may put in effort for weeks or for months without seeing obvious results, but that doesn't mean that the habit isn't working. This was like a really hard pill for me to swallow because I am a very impatient person. Like, for example, though, a student might study consistently but not see their grade improve immediately. However, though, they are building the knowledge, the discipline, and better study skills, which will eventually help create those visible results. He also talks about in the book how the problem is that many people quit during this period because they only measure immediate outcomes. The takeaway really from this is to just trust the process and to know that results are often delayed, but the work being done is still super valuable. Now let's apply these to the real world application. I know we've been talking about studying a lot, but let's go back to it again. College is a perfect example of where these concepts can be applied. Students often focus on the main goal, like graduating, getting a good job, or like getting good grades. While these are super important, the book teaches us that daily systems are what creates those outcomes. A student can apply these ideas by creating a consistent study routine, organizing their environment, and focusing on becoming the type of person who follows through. For example, studying systems versus cramming. We've already talked about this a lot. I need to study more is a great example. A lot of people say that. But to create a system, we want to do something like review our notes, study for 30 to 45 minutes every day after class. And the result of this, you'll be so much less stressed and you'll do so much better on your test. Some final takeaways is that the book teaches us that small actions create big results and that they need to be repeated consistently. The power of 1% improvement shows us that small changes compound over time. Systems beat goals because daily actions create long term success. The four laws of behavior changes give us a framework for building better habits. Identity based habits remind us that lasting change starts within ourselves. Finally, the plateau of latent potential teaches us to stay consistent even when results aren't immediate. Another big thing is to start small. Habits are hard to build, so you want to start with something that you won't fail on because you might get discouraged. Another closing thought is one of my favorite quotes from the book. You do not rise to the levels of your goals, you fall to the levels of your systems. And I think that this is a huge takeaway because we can all have these big dreams, we can all have these big goals, but if we don't have these systems, if we're not consistent, if we don't follow through with our word, how will we ever reach our goals? And small habits may seem super insignificant, but over time, genuinely, I think that making systems and making just those small little changes can help change your life for the better and honestly, like, change the whole direction of your life. And with that, I want to say thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you learned as much as I did. Thank you.